so far, but I can't lose it.
Wreck avoidances.
Stay low. Keep high, stay low.
Daring passes.
Oh, you're gonna get it.
Silly jumps.
Oh my god, a drive-through.
The thrill of victory.
They're against the wall. Good win, Mark. Stay low.
And the occasional mishap.
My sand crash.
This is the DMLC Racing Channel.
A new beginning with familiar faces. For the first time, Lionheart is going back to its roots. 18 races to determine who is the best and the most exciting form of auto racing on the planet. 200-mile-an-hour Indy cars, inches from disaster or glory. There can only be one inaugural champion, whose name will be etched into the Lionheart history books. Find out next. The Lionheart Speedway Series, presented by DMLC Racing Channel, starts now.
Twelve races down, 6 to go. The story of the inaugural Lionheart Speedway Series has been filled with twists and turns. But after a fuel-saving race at Chicagoland, the drivers touched down at the corner of Long Pond and Andretti Road. The Tricky Triangle has hosted its fair share of racing legends and classic IndyCar races. And today, the Lionheart paddock touches down, looking for its own history to be written and its first champion to be crowned. This is Pocono, and this is the -273 Pocono 200 presented by HyperX. Hello and welcome back to racespottv and coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined in the RaceSpottv commentary booth by Justin Prince and Andrew Kinsella. We've got cameras designed by Istvan Ballo and TrackCams22.com. Live timing and scoring powered by our partners at ATVO. Visit racespot.tv/timing to follow along with your favorite team and drivers. Justin, what a race that we had last time from the Chicagoland Speedway. Fuel saving, very much the name of the game, and as we talk about this race at the Pocono Raceway in our Sim Experience Countdown to Green, be interesting to see if fuel saving is going to be as critical, because looking at these fuel numbers, it might very well be a fuel mileage race.
This is going to be a critical talking point throughout the entire night, because keep this in mind, drivers are projected to make it around 25 laps on fuel. This race is 80 laps. Do the math, and if you don't save or get yourself to those marks, you might be about 5 laps short and will have to make an extra pit stop. I wouldn't be surprised, especially if there's an early caution flag, to see the field get shuffled a bunch with drivers trying to drop off and make sure they get to the finish on one less stop. In turn, this race at Pocono is going to be wild, not just in terms of strategy, but in terms of this track being pretty treacherous, but also very quick to get around. And keep in mind, we're at the old configuration for Pocono Raceway. Very bumpy around this circuit.
And we're using the legacy version, like Justin mentions. Andrew, what challenges is that going to present for our drivers here today? Because it's such a wide racetrack, especially coming down into turn 1 and 2. 3 different corners, all very different in the way that they race.
Well, it's not called the Tricky Triangle for nothing, Arjuna. This racetrack is notoriously difficult in Indy cars. We've seen in the real world a number of huge accidents happen here over the years. Hopefully the drivers here, what they'll need to do is they'll need to keep their noses clean. The draft will be important. The bumps will upset the car over the course of the race. They just need to keep their nose clean and be around for the end of the race.
80 laps, 200 miles, one of the shorter races in recent memories in Lionheart competition here in the Pocono Mountains. Let's take a look at our driver standings presented by the DMLC Racing Channel. And newcomer to the series, Barrett Rolfe, now leads. His first victory came in Speedway, Indiana. He has built up about a 20-point advantage, but first through fifth, really not separated by too much. 50 points, less than a full race victory between Barrett Rolfe and Alexander Van der Sant. Alexis Newsom and Matt Taylor, who have been very, very quick here in this DW12, are tied on points. Robert Malechka III, though, Justin, he's only competed in 8 of the races so far in this campaign. I'm really watching out for him because he has been one of the standout names of the series so far, victorious last time from Chicagoland.
He was the first person I was looking towards because of those less amount of races competed in so far this season, because he's been a contender in just about every single race this season. In multiple types of races too. The fuel mileage races, the green flag races, the attrition races. Malechka III is always someone to keep an eye on towards the front, especially since he's got himself 3 poles on the season. That's helped him keep good track position right from the get-go for factory back. In our words, it's all going to be intriguing to see how things play out in terms of these drops. It also helps in the case of Barrett Rolfe when you factor this in. 9 of his 10 finishes counting towards points have seen him net a top 10 finish at the stripe.
And we've seen him be a hard charger, whether he's in the DW12 or the IR18. And at the end of the day, the top 8 separated by less than 100 points. The title is wide open. Anyone could stand up and make themselves counted in this final third of the campaign. Here's a look at your team standings presented by HyperX. And Adrenaline Motorsports really did start the campaign off very, very strongly, but the performance from some of the other drivers, Andrew, has really allowed them to close the gap. Both Team Race First Red, Factory Back, and the second Race First Black team looking to try and close the gap. No bias in this commentary booth. Both you and I, members of that Adrenaline Motorsports team.
Absolutely, Arjuna. We are 100% bias-free here in this commentary booth. But you nailed it right on the head. That start from Adrenaline Motorsports has been so key for them. They haven't necessarily been the strongest in this recent stretch, as some of these rookies have come into their own and started gaining more confidence as the season has worn on. But what we're seeing is that initial gap that Adrenaline got is what's keeping them out in front. It'll be interesting to see if Race First Factory Back can come back and really start to put the screws to adrenaline as the season continues to wear on and they continue to get more and more comfortable here.
And then the top four broken away from Synergy Motorsports, about 300 points between 4th and 5th, and then further delineations there. Barrett Roth all by himself sits 7th place in these championship standings. It's a big rookie class in the inaugural Speedway Series as we take a look at these rookie standings presented by buttkicker. Of course, Rolf, Lexus Newsom, Matt Taylor, Alexander Van der Zent, Robert Malechka, all very strong competitors, but really looking out now to see what the rest of the drivers can do, Justin, to build at the rest of the season and look forward now to 2022. The likes of the Muscle Man, Chris Fowler, Nick DeGroot, Jess Young, and Charles Teed, they're all sitting in the top 10. We've seen very strong pace from them on occasion.
Well, you can put a star next to Fowler in particular because we've seen in the various Lionheart series Fowler be very fast over the past month and a half. Something has just turned around for him when it comes to his consistency because he's now managed to be a driver who has become well known as someone who leads a lot of laps, who's able to qualify up towards the front. It is not afraid to take away the race lead the second the opportunity opens up. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Fowler jump up a few positions over the next couple rounds when it comes to these rookie standings. Keep in mind as well, you have drivers like Nick DeGroot who have shown good speed in qualifying in some of the races indeed this season. It's all going to be very intriguing how this all plays out amongst our rookies.
Let's talk a little bit then about this series in particular with our series details presented by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz and don't forget to use the promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. The DW12 has made a triumphant return to Lionheart competition. The last time we saw it in action was in Season 5 of the IndyCar Series, and all of our drivers with a custom-fixed setup built by the man in the booth himself, Andrew Kinsella, fighting for their share of $7,300 in prize money. One more Triple Crown event, that will be our final race of the campaign. That will be an Auto Club. Really looking forward to these final 6 races though, Andrew. This DW12 has put on a show, some fun setups that you put on for the drivers as well.
This car may be old, but it is made for these ovals, Arjuna. The oval configuration of this car, it's got so much adjustability that you can really adjust these setups very close and get them handling exactly the way you want it to allow for the right type of racing. And the other part of that combination, though, is that we've got a fantastic slate of drivers who have been wheeling these cars around these tracks, and they've been putting on some fantastic shows at very close distances to each other, race in and race out.
And so let's talk then about this return to the corner of Long Pond and Andretti Road. Of course, Mario Andretti and his entire family so steeped in American open-wheel tradition. And a race that's got plenty of history behind it. 5 previous races, 5 different winners. A race that's had its fair share of cautions. It's finished under caution twice, but has still managed to produce some incredibly close racing. 27 lead changes in the final race with the DW12 back in Season 5. Closest margin of victory goes all the way back to the inaugural IndyCar campaign. Just 0.2 of a second, the margin of victory that time around. And Justin, one of the interesting things that I think we're going to see here today, only one driver has a chance of becoming a repeat winner here at the Pocono Raceway in this DW12. Can Indiana's own Chris Stouffer do it? He's had a bit of bad luck since I think about the Indianapolis 500-mile race that we had, but you never know with someone like Stouffer. He was right in the mix in those first couple of races. He could bounce back here today.
He's still amongst the top 10 of the point standings too, so you can't count him out whatsoever because while he hasn't had the luck, he's still somebody, Arjuna, who has, at the minimum, top 10 pace with the 7 top 10s and 5 top 5s in the campaign. So there's a decent shot for him to try and put himself in that category with the decent finish. But keep this in mind. Today could be an intriguing one overall, as discussed a little bit when it comes to this race, especially with being that 200 miles on how things could fare on the strategy, and in turn, how some of these drivers choose to attack one another.
And so let's talk a little bit about this racetrack itself. 2.5 miles, and Andrew, you talked about it. It's seen some incredibly close racing, some very big incidents as well. 3 corners, all modeled after different corners from around some of the great speedways in America. Turn 2, obviously modeled after Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But the amount of banking that you have, especially at turns 1 and 3, it is going to see cars lifting off as we go through in dirty air.
Yeah, that's one of the unique things about Pocono is how different each of the corners are. Turn 3, as you mentioned, very, very flat. It's modeled after Milwaukee. And you really have to modulate the throttle. It's a long, long corner. Turn 1, you do have to lift a little bit again, but it's a very different corner. It's very high banked. You can sort of throw the car in there, get it to rotate with a little bit of a lift, and get a big long run down that long back straightaway through turn 2, modeled after Indianapolis, and hold that throttle as close to the floor as you can all the way into turn 3. And I think that's where we'll see a lot of our passing is either into turn 3 or down into turn 1 in that wide first corner.
It's a fun race track. We've seen some great races here over the course of the last couple of months, even on racespottv, but of course we are racing at the legacy version, the older configuration. Very, very bumpy in comparison to the newer version of Pocono available on the iRacing service. Qualifying underway, just over 2 minutes left. It's Matt Houston at the top of the timing sheets right now. We are still waiting, though, for your big guns to show themselves up. The likes of Robert Malechka and his main championship rivals, waiting for Barrett Rolfe to put in a representative lap time as well. But I don't think we're going to see that from the 33 car, Justin. He's going to have a task once more, provisionally in 11th spot.
This has been the trend throughout the season. Don't forget, Arjuna, he has not been a strong qualifier right from the first green flag of the season. He has trended towards the teens to the low 20s when it comes to his qualifying position throughout the campaign, and it's cost him a few opportunities in turn, Arjuna. Now he's in a spot where, with him being at least a 10th off the pole, that is going to be a significant amount of margin in track position he'll have to try and make up, as we see Malechka the third, who has been a quick flyer when it comes to qualifying on track.
Works his way in towards turn number 1. He wasn't on pole last time when he did take that victory. It was his teammate Nick DeGroot for the factory back team. We saw factory backed 1, 2, and 3 at points in times. As Trevor Malone goes to the top of the timing sheets, that 69 car with a 41.507. Look at the margin, though. 14 cars, Andrew, separated by just under a tenth of a second. Make that 15 cars.
Yeah, this field is incredibly close today, and I think that's going to be a foreshadowing of what we're going to see in the race. It's going to be a very tight battle throughout this field. We've got a lot of very talented drivers here, as Luis Gonzalez Nunez now goes P3. Robert Malechka only 15th right now, right in around that Barrett Rolfe time, so he's got some work to do as we watch him on his second lap attempt here.
Newsom has gone quickest, 41.475. Tony Schowen goes to 5th fastest inside of row number 3. Malechka the third then in through turn number 3 for the final time in this qualifying session. 16 seconds left on the clock as Chris Stouffer goes up to second. We were talking about the chances for him. It's a 41.456. It's pole position once more for Robert Malechka, Justin.
And again, not a surprise to see Robert Malechka III find this pace, especially when the second lap of qualifying. This in turn will put him on the pole position for a 4th time, Arjuna.
Craig Forsyth at the death put it on second position, so incredibly close qualifying, especially at the death. Here's our starting grid presented by buttkicker. It is Robert Malechka III for the 4th time this season that has put it on pole, but the margin to Craig Forsyth under 200th of a second. Alexis Newsom then inside of Chris Stouffer. Plenty of championship rivals on those first 2 rows with Trevor Malone, Nick DeGroot looking for some good runs from 5th and 6th. Chris Fowler, Charles Teed 7th and 8th with Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Tony Schowen completing the top 10. Matt Houston, Vern Hawkins 11 and 12. Alexander Van der Sant has some work to do, but he'll line up in 13th inside of the 92 of Chris Lanini with Joe Branch, Ron Hacker 15th and 16th. Alex Gouillon 17th with Paul Jenkins on the outside of row number 9. Caleb Benchy on debut in 19th with Mike Rigney rounding out the top 20. The Muscle Man in 21st with another series debutant Dakota DeMay in 22nd. Jeff Young, Barrett Rolfe 23rd and 24th. Our championship points leader, plenty of work to do from the outside of row number 12. Dean Moll 25th, Matt Taylor 26th, with Christopher Kresge, Matt Wagner 27th and 28th. Final cars to set qualifying lap times. Brian Beard and Samuel Ryman will round out the top 30 and our entire grid today, because race controls Tyler Groff will not be out there on track. He will be monitoring from the booth. As always, we have a number of onboard cameras to work our way through here today. Let's take a look then at the first of them. Let's take a look at Barrett Rolfe, who has the -273 on board. The premier name in karting gloves. Visit -273.biz.
Tony Schowen has the HyperX onboard camera. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game.
Chris Fowler has the Graphics Esports onboard, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphicsesports.com. And
Mike Rigney holds on to the buttkicker onboard camera. What you see and what you hear is what you feel. For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com.
So we are ready to go then for 80 laps, 200 miles here in the Pocono Mountains. What are you expecting then here, Andrew? It's going to be a fast, frenetic race, one of the fastest racetracks across the entire 18-race season.
It's absolutely going to be fast, but it's also going to be, I think, a very strategic race here. Justin was talking about this earlier. The fuel windows here are very tight, and I think that there are a few drivers. I'm looking at guys like Joe Branch, Tony Schowen, who will try to stretch that fuel just a little bit. And it could make things very, very interesting as we go through this race.
Prediction time then, and we'll start with you, JP. Who are you feeling? Because I'll go before you, actually. I think Malechka is going to do it once more. He's put it on pole. I think he'll just manage to take that 5th victory in 9 races. An incredible 2021 for him.
Here's the thing when it comes to Pocono, though. Remember, when it came to the Retro Series, when they came here, it came down to some crazy, crazy moments. And a photo finish to determine who won, with the Watchman taking home that victory. For this race, I still feel like someone like Barrett Rolfe might be able to do something. He's been able to charge his way through the pack throughout the campaign. He nails the strategy. I see him making his way towards the front.
What about you, Andrew, as we come down in towards turn number 3?
While I do like someone like Barrett Rolfe coming through the field, it's kind of my style of racing. I am going to go with the man in 4th position, Chris Stouffer. He's very, very strong at Pocono. It's one of his favorite tracks, and I think that he's going to be at the front at the end of this race.
Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart. We are in Pocono, 30 DW12s ready to rumble for 200 miles of action. Who will come up on top with 6 races left to go? The iRacing pace car down onto the safety of pit lane, fielding control of Robert Malechka. We are racing in the -273 Pocono 200, presented by HyperX. It's a factory-backed 1-2 as we come out of the corner. Already Chris Stouffer looking around the outside of Craig Forsyth. Not a great launch for that number 72 car in towards the tunnel turn. This is where bravery will be tested. You can run side by side, but how confident and how much do you trust that car on the inside? Looks like we've got through safely. In through the final corner, Justin, 2.5 miles in the books.
And it becomes a factory-back 1-2 as a result of that start. Already, though, Nick de Groot trying to make it a 1-2-3. He has been willing to charge around the outside of cars. Did so at a turn 1. Nearly did so at a turn 2. He's already up inside the top 4 after the great start.
2 wide starts. Sometimes you see 4 wide formations as we fly our way down into turn number 1. Not the case this time around. De Groot already up to 4th then. He'll try and put the pressure on Chris Stouffer. Also looking at Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, who's inside for a moment of Chris Fowler. Just behind him, Charles Teed, Matt Houston on the edge of the top 10, scrapping it out. Really now interested to see, with no in-car adjustments, how aggressive can drivers be, Andrew, as here comes Alexis Newsom to the point of the field.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see is a lot of different lines, particularly through turn 3. At this legacy version of Pocono, the way to get the car to turn is actually to go around the outside, and there's this darker strip of a little bit newer pavement that really makes the car hook up. So what you have to do without those adjustments in car is to find those lines that really make the car turn and find just the right inputs. And the people who can do that, they're the ones who are going to go towards the front.
on board with Nick DeGroot, but he's having to defend from Chris Fowler in that number 20 car. Fowler, who's had a very impressive 2021 across of Lionheart competitions, has a great view of the action. DeGroot looking to the inside now, trying to make it a factory-backed 1, 2, and 3. What can Christopher do? He'll rip the high line, hold the momentum. Got some issues in the background, though. I think it's the debutant that's got involved. Indeed, it is. The number 82 car rolls itself on the access road, and Christopher Kresge, another Team Race First machine, I think, then, Justin, having some issues.
Yes, indeed. Kresge getting tangled up with that 82 machine. And this was going in the entry of turn 3, where Kresge actually ran into the back end of him, trying to cut to the left. DeMade ends up swerving back into him after bouncing off the wall and sends Kresge down to the access road. Significant damage, but no caution flag. Neither car fully spun around.
It looks like as well, just the two of them coming together there. So very fortunate not to have triggered a chain reaction. Both those cars make their way down onto pit road. We will rejoin the live coverage and look at this train of cars. We've got 27 cars still in this leading pack, separated by just 5 seconds at this point in time. Curious, Andrew, how much we'll get this thing spread out, though, as we work our way to potentially green flag pit stops.
Yeah, I think it will spread out eventually, but it's going to take a little bit for the tires to go off. For right now, I think that the name of the game for a lot of these guys, especially further back in the pack, is to start saving fuel. If you're going to make it to that lap 80 on just 2 stops, you have to start saving right from the beginning. And I think a lot of the guys who are a little bit further back, they have to be thinking about that right now.
Barrett Rolfe +5 already works his way into the top 20 as we ride on board with 00 of Mike Rigney and the butt kicker on board. Looking in front though, Justin, already Barrett Rolfe continues his aggression. Sometimes I feel like the aggression, just the better part of valor. You don't want to get mixed up too early, and I think that's what Rolfe has realized right now. Backs off into turn number 1 as Chris Lanini sends it deep around the outside.
I think, again, that goes towards what Andrew's saying, though. You want to get the run on the outside line because you can pitch that car on down to the inside groove and force them to have to lift off. And Barrett Rolfe, I think, realized he takes that line to the inside in that particular corner. He's likely not clearing on by it and ends up losing some positioning. But Barrett Rolfe is not afraid to at least try some things here. This time, he had a bit of a window to do something. I think right now he's in a bit of a pickle right now because there's no really open opportunities to get to the outside of the next car in front to try and leapfrog them unless he's able to get a big enough run to the inside somehow.
Bit of separation forming between Vern Hawkins in 13th position, Caleb Benchy in that number 29 car in 14th. That draft not yet broken, but it might start to just build up as these cars out front just pull away very slightly. Alexander Van der Sant attacking, defending at the same time. Tony Schauer now coming under attack from Vern Hawkins, a third in that 25 car. Aggressively forcing Schauer up the track in the entry in towards turn number 3. Hawkins gets the position for the time being, while out front it is still a factory back 1 and 2. We're not seeing swap drafting, Andrew, which sometimes you do see when you go super speedway racing in American open wheel competition.
Yeah, I really do think that like even Alexis Newsom, she's already saving fuel. She has the opportunities, she has the runs to actually do some of that swap drafting, but she just does not want to do it. I think she's forcing Malechka to lead right now, and you look at Stouffer, he's right under Alexis's wing, but he does not want to duck out and pass either. So already we've got the strategy going on, but it'll be interesting to see who is going to throw a little bit of that strategy to the wind as we see Chris Fowler with the fastest lap of the race and moving up. So he's one who's already on the move.
Nick DeGroot has been passed by Fowler as we jump on board with the Graphics Esports look from the left side in towards turn number 1. Look this way. This is where dirty air sometimes I just feel like finding the line becomes crucial, and Fowler didn't find that pocket that he needed, just gets very slightly checked up. DeGroot now does closes. Behind them, Trevor Malone pops out. Malone had an impressive qualifying, not such an impressive start. He's -6 so far on the day, trying to attack Alexander Van der Sant, but going to come under pressure, I should say, from Vern Hawkins as Tony Schauer just looked for an opportunity. This is where things start to get racy, but I'm knocking on all the wood around me. 9 laps about to be in the books, and we still are under the green flag conditions. One thing we are going to be able to do now over the rest of 2021 is take a look with your live points situations. And as things run, Alexis Newsom second will leapfrog Barrett Rolfe in that 33 car. It would be 8 points the difference between Newsom and Rolfe. Tony Schauer, if he can climb some spots up, can also close the gap. Matt Taylor, who had a very disappointing qualifying performance by his own standards, Justin. Still stuck down in 26th position. He needs to get a move on, and get a move on quickly, because both Malechka and Van der Sant are closing the gap to him.
Yeah, keep in mind, when it comes to Taylor, was looking towards this before the start of the race. He's actually also finished inside the top 10 in 10 out of his 10 counting rounds entering today when the drops are factored in. So Taylor has had the consistency. The main thing is, though, he just has almost been amongst that traffic jam that has been amongst the back cars. As we see one more have an appeal on in, that's Matt Wagner, who had an issue. I'm guessing Wagner has gone and slapped the wall at some point in time, because 11 laps into this race, you don't want to be down on pit road unless you absolutely have to. Only stationary for 8.8 seconds, so maybe there's some strategy going on here that I'm not particularly clued into, but at a track...
There is, Arjuna. I think that what Matt Wagner is doing is because this is a unique track where you don't actually lose a lap when you go into the pits necessarily. So what Matt Wagner can do with this is, if he can get back out on the lead lap, he can potentially be in prime position if a caution flag does come out. He's now committed to a 3-stop strategy, but he's in prime position potentially to get into the lead of this race.
We might have a change for that lead as Stouffer being aggressive. I think Newsom responds. Malechka and Stouffer side by side through the tunnel turn. Malechka almost slaps the wall himself. Oh, that was close. It's still a factory back 1-2. I think Stouffer's now going to come under threat from Chris Fowler. I think you're right, though. That strategy call might work out his way. He's not that far in front, though, of the pack, it must be said, Justin, as you can take a look at the bottom right-hand portion of the screen. He's only about half a straightaway as we work our way down into turn number 1. The leaders might actually catch him at this rate of knots.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on the pace, because for some of the drivers, the fall has already reached about 0.6 of a second compared to the fresh tires. But keep in mind, Wagner's fastest times have been around the same pace they're running with these worn tires up towards the front. So I'm very curious on how this fares out. Wagner's gap has been eaten into a little bit over the course of lap by a couple tenths alone because of all the slipstream of the draft being picked up from these competitors as they continue to scrap. By the way, Barrett Rolfe, he's already up to 14th position now. The downside is it's going to take a little bit of work to close up the gap between him and Alex Gouillon, nearly a full second.
Yeah, it's 0.8 tenths to Gouillon, and then further down the road, some more gaps opening up at this point in time. So Rolfe finds himself 5 seconds adrift from his race, the race leader and one of his main championship rivals. But it's not a position you want to be in, is it, Andrew? You don't want to be known for passing your way through the field, because it means you put yourself in that uncomfortable situation of having to charge through the field with disappointing qualifying runs.
I mean, you're asking the wrong person that question, Arjuna, because I am famous for having bad starting positions and working my way up through the field in Lionheart competition. The one thing that I will say about this for Barrett Rolfe is it makes saving fuel very, very difficult, because he has to use up fuel every time that he passes someone. He can't just sit behind someone and hope that the race comes to him, because that's a very dicey proposition, especially this early in a race. So he might be painting himself into a bit of a strategy corner as he works his way up here, and he's going to have to be very careful going forward in this race.
You say wrong person, I say right person. You've got the experience of having to do that, as already 15 laps about to be in the books. This race is really starting to just tick on by, and of course the fuel window, 24-25 laps. Only about 10 laps away from those first pit stops being imminent, and I do wonder who's done the most fuel saving. The Lionheart IndyCar Series, which will be in action this coming Wednesday from Twin Ring Motegi. The Dallara IR18 with the fixed setup still does have in-car adjustments, both your front and rear ARBs, the weight jacker as well, but more crucially in a race like this, the fuel maps that really do come into effect, the ability to just knock it down into a slightly more conservative map of Stouffer finally will get on past Robert Malechka III, no longer a factory back 1-2. But in a race like this, Justin, that ability to just knock down the map, preserve the fuel, you know, using the car's tool rather than your two own feet to do so, it's a much different sort of a situation, and this really does emphasize then the quality of the driver, as Stouffer is looking aggressive now. The top two cars separating themselves by half a second from Malechka III.
Yeah, let's put it this way when it comes to being able to save fuel with the Dallara DW12. It takes a lot of finesse, it takes a lot of practice, it takes a fair bit of experience to make sure you know those limitations, and you also have to be willing to take risks. Take, for example, Alexander Vandersen making that pass to the outside line just now. Remember, he was able to take that risk at Kentucky. He was among one of the drivers who took some calls at Chicagoland and was also in a decent position on fuel mileage earlier on in the past couple rounds or so. So there are drivers who have a track record of being willing to take the risk if the opportunity presents itself. That's going to be the interesting mark, is how many drivers go further than that projected window. I'm curious to see that, absolutely, to see how many are willing to push that envelope and see if they can try and stretch their runs in some way, somehow, by about 2-3 laps to try and cut out that full stop.
New race leader, and for the first time it's not a factory back driver. It's now Chris Stouffer up front as we ride on board with Alexis Newsom. And Stouffer seems to really have turned the wick up to a maximum attack, because now 3/10 clear. Do wonder if potentially just compromising himself from a fuel perspective, or maybe just setting up that alternate strategy. In a race like this, you'd never know exactly how things are going to go. Caution's an ever-present threat. In a race that has seen plenty of cautions. Back in the pack, though, the action is thick and fast. Rigny Xiong side by side for the time being. Right behind them, the winner from our series opener, Dean Moll, looks to try and get in on the fun as he's +4 on the day, Andrew.
Yeah, we have a lot of coming and going throughout this field as they get very close off of the tunnel turn there. Dean Moll in the sort of popcorn position to watch this battle. What you're seeing here is, to go back to what Justin was saying, I think that the people with the most experience are the ones who you see making a lot of these outside passes. There are a few guys. Dean Moll is trying to take this inside line here on Mike Rigney, but you see that draft is so powerful that the way you need to make positions is you have to stay in the draft, stay disciplined, and look for that outside line. The other benefit to that is you stay in the draft for so long, you do end up saving a little bit more fuel because you can get off the gas coming into turns 1 and 3, but keep your momentum up on that high side. So I think that having that outside move is one of the keys to making this fuel strategy work for some of these guys here.
Oh, as Barrett Rolfe gets a little bit squirrely there and almost slides into the path of Guyon. I think for Dean Moll, just a good line, defensive line from Rigney, not giving the inside to, or rather not giving the outside to Moll in that 23 car. Sets him up nicely to just hold that position down in towards turn number 1. Rolfe trying to steal another position away from Trevor Malone, who has slid down through the field after that roaring qualifying performance. Up there in the top 5. Holds on for the time being. A driver, Justin, who, if we're being completely honest, always quick, has just had almost zero luck this season. He's been caught up in more incidents than I can even count off the top of my head at this point in time, and often no direct fault of his own, just wrong place, wrong time. That teal car definitely just looking for some luck as here comes Rolfe.
Yeah, when it comes to Trevor Malone, he's definitely been quick. There's a reason he's been a contender in a few of the races this season, especially when it comes to some of the short track races. Gateway, for example, top 10 finish. Phoenix, 4th place run. You also include a couple of the hour races such as New Hampshire, top 10 run there as well. So he's usually better when it comes to the shorter distances at keeping himself clean. The thing is, where you'd expect more attrition on those short tracks in turn from seeing something such as Malone, his attrition in turn usually comes into play at the big tracks. Michigan was a DNL. Homestead, a DNL, for example. Those are intriguing different counterpoints to where his driving style almost seems to suit tracks such as, say, Phoenix, or you can maybe include Iowa possibly into that grouping as well. It's an intriguing layer of sorts when it comes to Trevor Malone, but overall he's got decent pace. It's just he hasn't been able to play things out perfectly. He's doing a good job defending, I will say in all of this, though, not allowing any run to the outside or the inside.
Yeah, and really frustrating Rolfe and his charge up into that top 10, at least for the time being. These cars starting to close in on that leading pack as well. There was at one point a 1.5 second differential between Tony Schowen, who has now come down onto pit road, to the 31 car, trying something slightly different at this point in time. In drives the Adrenaline Motorsports driver. Does mean the gap now between Vern Hawkins and Alexander Vandersen is back up to about 1.3 seconds. So just our timing playing some games with us. We were talking about Matt Taylor struggling. Well, He's on the charge now, +5, getting past Jeff Seong. Lots of work to do, but consistent performances and consistent runs throughout the rest of this campaign might still keep him in with a championship hope, be it just be an outside chance. Meanwhile, out front, Stouffer, Newsom, Malechko, the top 3 with Fowler, Forsyth, separated now by 1 second. So the top 4 cars not really scrapping too hard at this point, Andrew, and really starting to stretch their legs.
They are, and they're stretching that fuel as well. We're on the lap 25, so this is the laps right in here. Lap 25, 26, 27. Lap 25, you won't be able to get to the end. Lap 26, you're getting close. Lap 27, that's your comfort level. If you can get to lap 27, what is it, 64 or 54, and then it'll get you almost all the way to the end there. So really, this is the key time right here, is can these guys stay out? Tony Shallen's already said, nope, I can't make it, I'm coming in early. Matt Wagner, we saw it come in early. Now it's time to see whether Chris Stouffer, Alexis Newsom, Robert Malechka, the top 4 here, can they make it all the way?
A couple of other cars electing to blink. They include Alex Guillaume, Vern Hawkins, Jeff Seong, Brian Beard. And Justin, you were hearing over the radio some drivers communicating about their intentions on fuel saving.
Yeah, to the point where some of the drivers are communicating, such as in this grouping, don't worry about me, just run your line at the moment. Keep in mind, many of these drivers amongst this lead group in the second grouping are indicating they're coming down. You see a bunch of them peeling off, and one car smoking the tires.
Was that Stouffer that I think was very, very sideways on the entry?
That was Newsom. That was Newsom. Another disastrous pit entry this season for Newsom.
And she's still not been able to roll herself onto pit road. That's how disastrous the entry was. Let's turn our attention to the racespottv replay machine and take a look here, because my oh my, wrong way she was pointed at one point in time. Here we go. It'll be through turn number 3, and let's jump on board as somehow we'll stay under green. Sometimes those disastrous pit entries shake things up. We'll potentially give an unsafe pit entry to Newsom, who just locks up the rears, and around she goes. She'll be lucky, Andrew, if she's gotten away with damage there.
Yeah, it looks like her angle might have been good enough that I think she could have gotten away with it. She might have a little bit of right rear pod damage. It's tough to say, but she's on pit road for a long time as well, so it looks like she definitely had some repairs to make. As we see the rest of the field now on the end of lap 27, beginning of lap 28, coming down to the pit. So this means that everyone who's on pit lane right now, if they can do that 2 more times, they're in the window to make it all the way to the end. Chris Stouffer, he's got to save a little bit more. Robert Malechka, he's got to save a little bit more. And it's going to be really tough for them as things get more and more strung out.
You know who's done a really great job? Both Chris Fowler and Nick DeGroot, who are rolling themselves onto the pit entry at this point in time, extending it to lap 28 on the stint. So both of those drivers clearly focused on the fuel saving, has also enabled the likes of Luis Gonzalez Nunez to jump up into net 6th position at this point in time. So a great run from the Neki Racing driver, another driver looking for just a little bit of luck to round out what has been a tough 2021. So DeGroot, Fowler, they're the ones stationary on pit road as the 20 gets rolling. About 30 seconds is your pit road delta at this particular track. There goes Fowler, there goes DeGroot. Fowler will cycle himself just a little bit behind the leading 3 cars. Stouffer, Schauen, Malechka. So Schauen is in a bit of a pickle when it comes to this strategy, isn't he, Justin? He needs a caution to come and save him. Stouffer needs his teammate to potentially come and help him at this point in time.
Yeah, I'm looking at all this once more, and it's pretty clear that Tony Schauen is not in a good or even close to optimal strategy situation. If it goes green the whole entire way, he's guaranteed for that 3rd stop and likely ends up losing in turn 10, 15 net positions, possibly from that alone, from that said service, depending on how many more have to in turn take the 3rd stop. But in turn, it's all going to be intriguing how this becomes with some of these drivers having to save a lot, because we know for the numbers, Fowler and DeGroot are in the best situation possible, and they're still in the draft rather than, say, the clean air of Stouffer. or some of the other drivers. So they have that optimal situation to be able to lift and coast on some of these corner entries to try and make sure of things. In our words, this might fall into Fowler and DeGroot's hands, if anything, Arjun, at least based on the strategy numbers, and it might be close for several more.
As they go ducking and diving on that main straightaway, Shawin trying to break the drop of Robert Malechka. Vern Hawkins goes fastest. I tell you what, we were singing his praises. Oh, Justin, you were singing Fowler's praises earlier in the broadcast. Let's talk a little bit then about our sim experience driver profile. It is the number 20 car of Chris Fowler. 12 starts, just 3 top 10s, 2 top 5s to speak of, but of course a best finish of 2nd at New Hampshire. That elusive victory might be coming today, Justin.
Again, in this situation, he's in a very optimistic and optimal window when it comes to the strategy. There is one factor to that, the car that is a couple behind him and Nick DeGroot. That's his main barrier right now, as long as it stays green between him and the optimal strategy to see him up towards the front for the field. In our words, it's going to be intriguing to see if Fowler can get the job done, especially with how many times we've seen podium finishes for Fowler since the middle of July, all the way in through the month of September across the IndyCar Series, the Retro Series, and some of the Speedway Series races of late.
Sometimes just slipping through his fingers, and I tell you what, let's take another look then at our live championship standings. It would be a tie if things stay as they are between Rolf and Shawin. Newsom has really hurt her chances. In fact, Matt Taylor, who is still only running in 23rd, would leapfrog the 63 car by 1 solitary point. Unlikely, of course, that we'll see Shawin in that position unless things swing in his direction, but you never know, never say never, coming to a track like this where speeds are treacherous at times. The distance between the cars equally treacherous. Would be almost 40 points between Rolf, Shawin, and the rest of the field with 5 races to go. Heading out then of the tricky triangle, we will head to the cornfields of Iowa next time we go racing in the Speedway Series. So gaps, it is 3 seconds between Stouffer and Shawin out front. Going to be very difficult for Chris Stouffer to be saving the fuel that he might need to do. Malechka the third in a very nice position, almost 9/10 clear, Andrew, of the cars behind him.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing here is Stouffer knows that he doesn't want to go slow enough to make it on fuel. So what we saw that first stint was a lot of people were able to use the draft and stay in the draft. But that gets harder and harder as the race goes on. So you talk about Fowler being in the best position. He is in the best position, but he has to remain vigilant. And you actually see him drafting behind Luis Gonzalez Nunez rather than trying to pass him. And that's, I think, a very key strategy move for Chris Fowler right now, is he is just saving as much fuel as he possibly can. His best bet is being able to save that fuel and not having to worry about that fuel on the last stint. So if he can get to lap 55, that's the key to actually being able to go full out on that last stint, no fuel saving, no draft needed. And that's still a pretty big ask for most of this field without any draft. So you look at Stouffer, he's not drafting. He knows that he can't make it now. He's going full out and he's trying to build as big a gap as possible. If a caution comes out, that's great for him. If not, he's going to try and get as far up this field as he can, going as fast as he possibly can.
Stouffer, the fastest car on the track other than Barrett Rolfe, who is now trying to close a 2-second deficit to the cars in front. He's all on his lonesome at this point in time. 2 seconds between him and Alexander Van der Sant, who did not benefit from the pit cycle like I thought he might have. Caleb Benchy side by side with Van der Sant. He will get not just Van der Sant, he's passed Malone as well. 2 cars for 1. Benchy on debut trying to finish then up in the top 10. Another driver making some big gains on this very long green flag run. There you can see left side of your screen, movers and shakers. +8 for Shawin, +5 for Nunez. Canadian looking for a very strong run. +4 for Vern Hawkins. And of course, +14 double digits for a driver known for carving his way up through the field. Matt Taylor gets on past a driver who's also coming down onto pit road. That's Paul Jenkins. And right behind Taylor, one of the newest members of the RaceSpottv commentary team, Samuel Ryman, in his first outing on the campaign in that yellow and red machine. Joe Branch at the front of this train, 16th on back. Another group that's 2 seconds adrift. of those cars in front of them. Gap out front has managed to balloon its way up to 3.6 seconds, and Tony Schowen very much helping the cars behind. Here comes Nunez with the draft. Fowler going back and forth. And Andrew, when it comes to fuel saving in this car, how do you also make sure that you don't lose too much time? Because as Fowler looks aggressively to the inside, lifting and coasting, it's easier said than done, I think, for some teams and drivers.
Yeah, so what you really need to do is you need to position yourself in a way that you're comfortable with whoever is behind you, and you're picking a point on the track, and at the same point every time on the track, you're lifting at that point. So there are braking boards in the fence coming into each of the corners here. So what you're doing is you're picking, like, in some cases it'll be the 1 board. If you need a little bit more, it'll be the 2 or the 3 board. And you actually lift off the throttle and just let the car roll into the corner as much as you possibly can, and that will let you rotate the car really nice and easy, and you just get back into the throttle easy, use the draft in front of you to keep your momentum up and stay off the throttle as much as you possibly can while you're just keeping a nice close gap to the car in front of you.
Stouffer has a friend. That is Matt Wagner, the car that came down onto pit road. This is ideal for the number 13 car, Justin, because of course worn tires for Stouffer. Not going to compromise him as much as maybe some other tracks, but definitely running a bit slower, about 0.3 slower than the number 3 car the last time around, and really just going to help him save a little bit of fuel right now. Might not get him to the end, might just make his final pit stop that much shorter.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think he may have needed, where I think now the interval is going to stabilize out a little bit. If not just slowly slow down the increase, I should rather say, when it comes to that margin. But in regards to that, indeed allows him, if he can keep in touch with the fresher tires of Wagner, someone dropped off of. Here's the problem. Wagner is running 0.3 quicker, as you referred to. He's just about gone. If anything, Stouffer's already lost his drafting buddy as we see some of the battling just behind him.
De Groot got past Fowler, which of course 2 cars that came down to pit road at the same time. Interesting to see how aggressive De Groot is being at this point. Running in towards turn number 1. Nunez will hold on for the time being. Halfway through this race, my oh my, for a race that has never seen, and I'm making sure I knock on all the wood around me given how the racespottv commentators curses work in the past, but no cautions so far. Fewest number of cautions, including both the IR18 and DW12 history, Andrew, is 5 cautions here. So an incredibly clean race, and kind of just speaks to the quality of driver that you referred to earlier on as Tony Schowen peels off onto the pit road.
Absolutely. We've seen that the drivers in this series time and time again can take difficult situations, difficult setups, and really make very good decisions out there and really do the responsible thing. And you're seeing that again here today. You look at a driver like Chris Fowler. He's been sort of a very aggressive driver traditionally, but even he's sort of just running a really, really smart race here today. Everybody understands that what they need to do is they need to make their fuel number first and foremost. As we see, actually, Barrett Rolfe is finally caught back up to the end of this pack, so he is actually starting to enter into the picture of a proper top 10, top 5 battle. But the question is, how much fuel did he use getting up to this battle here?
And let's quickly just cycle through some of then your championship drivers. Start, of course, with Barrett Rolfe, who we're looking at right now, plus 16 into 8th. Will be at a bit of a disadvantage when it comes to that fuel mileage, but never say never. We've seen weirder things happen in the Lionheart competitions. David Rodriguez still under investigation for a magical fuel growing tree in his tank when they went short track racing in Iowa. Then you've got, of course, Alexis Newsom, who came into this race up there in the top 3. That incident on pit entry really put her at a disadvantage, running all by herself down in 22nd. But she is in front of Tony Schowen, who has come out of pit road 23rd on a very different strategy. Matt Taylor has started to work his way forward, JP. Now up to 15th. He's another driver, double digits gain. What can he do from here, though? Because still plenty of time to go. He's in that danger zone, though, of where there's action, there's sometimes danger. You don't want to put yourself in a bad situation, especially knowing what's on the line here.
Part of me is actually thinking back to something he mentioned during Retro Series competition, where he mentioned it took him until the second half of one of the more recent races to get a grip and a feeling to the track because of it rubbering up. You know what's built up around this circuit? Rubber. As these cars have continuously built themselves around the track, it looks like Taylor, now that the track is rubbered up and has gripped up for him, has fit his preferences to the point where he can send it the way he's looking for. It's almost looking like he's one of the few that are starting to get the bottom line to work, in fact, as we've seen with some of those moves just a moment ago. So in our words, when it becomes this type of situation where the track gets rubbered up, that seems to fit Taylor's driving style and preference. When it's a green racetrack, you end up seeing him struggle like we've seen early on in this race.
Take a look then at the track conditions. 25 degrees in the air, 39 down on the track itself, so pretty warm, especially in Pocono standards. We are racing at 4 p.m. in the virtual Pocono. Not that much wind, but from your perspective, Andrew, as this track rubbers up, what do you expect the car to be doing? Is it going to build up alternate lines, or do you think it's just a little bit more driver comfort that we're seeing from that number 8 car as he builds up his speed?
I think it's a combination of the lines are starting to open up, but also some of these drivers are realizing that it's time to go. You're seeing this pack with Malone, Benchy, Lanini, Taylor. They're almost 6 seconds behind the pack of Rolf, Fowler, Forsyth. So even if you can make it on fuel, these guys are starting to realize that they won't be in contention for the win if they don't start going forward. So you're really in this very tough position of having to move forward as quickly as you can, but also save as much fuel as you can. So it's almost the case of going as slowly as you can, as fast as you can.
What a race it's been so far. 46 laps in the book. Christopher leads by 5.5 seconds from now second place runner Nick de Groot. Chris Fowler, Craig Forsyth, Robert Malechka III round out the top 5 here at the minus 273 Pocono 200 presented by HyperX. The race conclusion coming up right after this.
Wreck avoidances.
Stay low. He's high, stay low.
Daring passes.
Oh, you're gonna get it.
Silly jumps.
Oh my god, a drive-through.
The thrill of victory.
They're against the wall. Good win, Mark. Stay low.
And the occasional mishap.
My sim crashed.
This is the DMLC Racing Channel.
Welcome back to RaceSpot.tv and coverage of the Lionheart Speedway Series. We're in the Pocono Mountains and at the tricky triangle for the -273 Pocono 200. Pit stops have just begun for what might be the final time in today's race, this final pit stop window for some of these drivers. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, alongside in the RaceSpot.tv commentary booth, Justin Prince and Andrew Kinsella. Reminder, you can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to racespot.tv/timing to find your favorite team and drivers. What a race it's been so far, Justin, and once more, it might be a fuel mileage game. Christopher has just come down onto pit road. Nick de Groot, your new race leader.
And it's about time for some of the drivers to get their magical fuel-saving trees out, if they haven't started planting them in the middle of the infield by now, because these numbers are going to get ever so important within these next couple laps, especially with how things have fared out. Here's the thing to think about. But de Groot has the net advantage of the drivers who went the furthest on their fuel tanks the first stint. Fowler has been saving behind him for about 5-10 laps plus now, and allowing de Groot to have the clean air and in turn burn a little bit more fuel than him. So in turn, these numbers are getting intriguing on how this can play it out, as some of the drivers who pushed hard are coming in, and this is going to be tight for them on their marks now.
And it's Barrett Rolfe, who was about +18 at one point in today's race. Now might have to get behind some traffic, do some fuel saving. For these drivers, though, out front, they are looking increasingly comfortable working lap 25 on the stint so far. Have to wait and see if they'll come down this time around or wait until potentially the next lap to pit. But no cautions on the day, and I'm trying to say that with as much hope that it doesn't jinx the races here, just Andrew here. But what a race it's been, and really now interested as to how things play out, as here comes, I believe, another driver onto pit road. It's Luis Gonzalez Nunez.
Yeah, this has been a great race so far. It's had a little bit of everything. People have been coming and going. There have been a lot of passes. As we see some more smoke on pit lane, the entrance. Who is that spinning on pit lane?
Oh, it's a championship hopeful. It's Matt Taylor, who almost comes to blows with first Mike Rigney and then Joe Branch. Very careful on the entry into pit road. I mean, at least into the box, not necessarily on the entry to pit road. Let's go ahead then and turn our attention to the all-seeing, ever-present RaceSpot.tv replay machine and pick up here what happened to the team race first driver. He got very squirrely and then compromised his teammate's entry there as well, Justin.
And then locks him up again, and then here's where everything continues to cascade. His pit box is early in the pit lane. He only hits two cars trying to peel off for one of the first pit boxes in the stall. You have to have some space to be able to come on in, and now things get intriguing. This could be chaotic for this entry.
Race off of pit road going to be very, very important. Forsyth, Malechka, de Groot, Fowler, and Moll all into their box for what might be the final time today. Fowler rolls off first. He'll beat de Groot out. Forsyth in front of Malechka. The pole sitter has been left in their tracks. Fowler and Forsyth still side by side as they merge back up onto the track. Look at that, though. So close with Luis Gonzalez Nunez. He'll power around the outside, Andrew. Now into the net race lead.
It may or may not be the net race lead, because I want to point something out. Christopher has fallen back and is now towing behind his teammate Tony Schowen. Now Christopher came down the pit lane with 28 laps to go. So we've seen people go 28 laps. The question is, can he do that by towing along behind his teammate Tony Schowen, who we know can't make it? And can Christopher actually steal this race out from the nose, under the nose of everyone here?
Another dangerous merge as they go 3 wide on the entry. Fowler stuck in the middle with, I think that's Matt Wagner on the high side. My oh my, that was dangerous for a moment, but they keep things safe. It's going to be tough for Christopher, Andrew, because Tony Schowen's already 15 laps into his run. He's maybe looking at best at 11 or 12 laps before he has to drop down onto pit road. So it's going to be very, very close. But in a race like this, margins are always so tight.
Well, but here's the thing, Arjun, is that Christopher has an 8-second lead over Luis Gonzalez Nunez, who is the next car that we know can actually make it to the end. So that means that even when Schowen comes down pit lane, Stouffer can back off and lose 8 seconds before he's under threat of actually losing this race. So he might have actually built up a big enough margin that he could still win this.
And so let's take a look then at the points as they run. And of course, kind of hard to tell because Tony Schowen will not be getting the full 60 points for the position that he's running right now. Barrett Rolfe in a very good position after another very frustrating qualifying for him. Plus 18 sits in 6th position, now tucked up behind Craig Forsyth in the 72 car. They'll be 30 points clear of Matt Taylor, and Taylor, who had done a good job to carve his way up through the field in that second stint of the race, still runs in 17th, but was looking closer at a top 10 heading into that pit window. Newsom, after spinning on pit road early on the entry, down in 24th, will be on 517. Chris Stouffer might reinsert himself into potential title contention. He can hold on to the position that he's in. And Justin, I had mentioned 3 wide. I don't think I mentioned just how close it was between Fowler and Matt Wagner.
Yeah, and here's the thing when it comes to Wagner. Remember, he is on an alternate strategy. Came down a few laps ago. Here's the thing. His pit stop at the time, Arjuna, was meant to come in 1 lap earlier. But with that 3 wide moment, guess who he nearly turned down across? Chris Fowler, just avoiding his front wing, and that could have been massively cataclysmic for this battle for the race lead.
2 cars retired early on. It was Christopher Kresge in the 16, Dakota DeMade in that 82 car on debut. The 2 of them came together, playing a bit of bumper cars as De Groot slots into line very aggressively on Barrett Rolfe. Fowler with the run on the inside and towards turn number 3. He'll take away the spot from both Malechka III and from Barrett Rolfe. These guys getting increasingly racy as Fowler tries to slot up into line, at least for the time being. Now pops himself back out. That inside groove is becoming increasingly feasible. Pinching on entry is Fowler. Rolfe has a great view of the action, but he might get the run here out of turn 1, Andrew.
Yeah, so what you're seeing right now is that even though they're probably still saving just a little bit of fuel, everyone is going for positioning right now. They're trying to get into as close to the lead of this drive as they touch Fowler's around.
Fowler holds on though, just about.
Oh, that was so close.
Loses his momentum, and a driver searching for that elusive victory has found himself once more with a whole heap of bad luck. Let's go take a look then at what happened between the 2 of them as Vern Hawkins works his way onto pit road. The tunnel turn, Andrew had mentioned it at the start. Confidence is key. Trusting the car on the inside, even more important. Modeled after one of the turns at Indianapolis, and hard to say who's at fault there, but wonderful car control, Andrew, from Fowler to hang on there.
That was so close to disaster for Fowler. I'm not quite sure, honestly, how he saved that. He just about lost it there, saved it, and he just about lost it again coming off the corner. What a job gathering it up. That incident, honestly, it's one of those things where it was just 2 cars trying to go for the same spot. Fowler was pinching Rolfe down a little bit, and it's very easy to push up just off the bottom there. There's a few bumps going through the tunnel turn. So I think, honestly, it was just one of those racing deals, but it's cost Fowler a lot of time, and he's going to have to burn up a lot of fuel to get back up to this draft.
He sits 3/10 behind Charles Teed, who was just on the outside of the shot. About 1.5 seconds further than up the road to Robert Malechka, the pole position sitter, who now sits in 6th position as Fowler is going to get past Charles Teed. Luis Gonzalez Nunez working on the back of Craig Forsyth. Probably lots of fuel saving going on right now. 18 laps to go. Tony Schowen out front for the time being, 22 laps into the run. Probably 3 or 4 laps away from coming down to pit road. And Justin, at one point, the gap between Stouffer and the cars behind was almost 8 seconds. It's 5.4 seconds and closing every single lap.
That's in part with the fresher tires. That's in part with this fuel saving that Stouffer's having to do, going 215 through the tunnel turn that time. So that gap is going to continue to keep on going down and down and down, even with the amount of finding, just with how this tire fall off has been throughout this race tonight here at Pocono Raceway. But keep in mind, even with the fuel saving, for Stouffer, he needs that fuel saving tree to have sprouted up by now. It's to where he is really rolling through the gas. right behind Tony Schowen. This is right now similar to a teamwork play we've seen a couple times throughout the season. You have a teammate in front who's at a winning situation, who potentially can help. Christopher, in turn, is the benefactor in that if this continues on, and the question is going to be, is that going to be enough? I'm not quite sure. Remember, he has to try and stretch a 28-29 laps, one of the longest stints of the day.
That's Alexis Newsom, who will come down into the line of Stouffer, insert herself between the two teammates. Stouffer will likely get on through as Malechka the third, Barrett Rolfe, they're swapping around as well. Looks like aggressive pass attempted for a moment from Nick de Groot. He has gotten on past Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Oh, and there's contact. De Groot turns around. Not sure who that was. Nunez up into the wall. He's accompanied by, I think that's a lapped car. It must be a lapped car. Somehow we stay under green. Brian Beard gets involved, Kinsella.
It looks like just chaos is ensuing right now, but as we spool up the RaceSpot TV replay, I'm not sure who was at fault there. I didn't quite see the beginning of that accident on that replay as we come back again. It looks like De Groot just gets into the back of the car in front, and it's just one of those things. I think De Groot just the car in front there, he just lifted off the gas a little bit harder than De Groot was thinking he was, and he turned him around. Luis Gonzalez Nunez nowhere to go, and just one of those unfortunate things. De Groot does continue on, which is fortunate for him. It'll be interesting to see what race control has to say about that, because in my opinion, that was probably more on De Groot than anything else there.
Well, De Groot's paid the price as well. He's down onto pit road and in his box getting some service. Only 6.3 seconds stationary as now it leaves Malechka and Forsyth out there. Tony Schowen is ducked down onto pit road as well. Things are getting tense. It's 13 laps to go. Christopher needs some assistance at this point in time. He does have some help.
Yeah, he has it. Alexis Newsom, that you mentioned that he would go right around him, but he right around her, but he did not. He's staying right behind Alexis Newsom. And even though Alexis Newsom's going a little bit slowly right now, Arjuna, that's actually helping him even more because it's allowing him to breathe even more off the throttle, save even more fuel. So even if Forsyth and Malechka do catch him, he's still got a shot at this, and he's definitely got a shot at a podium right now.
Well, I think there we go. Swap around has happened. Have to wait and see how it plays out because that gap is now down to 3 seconds and closing. Last time around, it was almost 8 tenths of a second that Forsyth and Malechka closed. So really, Stouffer in a very, very difficult position as we head into the closing laps here, Justin. And 3 incidents out on track. Fortunately, 0 cautions. It has been an incredible race so far. It might be a bumper finish here in the Pocono Mountains.
And I was going to say, when it comes to Newsom, it's not a surprise to see that swap come back quickly. And now it's, for Stouffer, I think, massive fuel-saving mode because now he's in the spot where he needs to be behind somebody to have a true shot. It's to the point where Newsom's really backing on down. And here's the thing. Robert Malechka III is battling for second. In our words, there might be the potential of Newsom trying to back up Stouffer with this save, keep in mind, right into the clutches of this battle. This is playing exactly to Forsyth and Malechka III's hands.
That's Alexander Van der Sande, who's just come out of pit road by himself. Fresh tires. I wonder how he's going to insert himself into the equation. I don't think Stouffer is going to be too upset if he's backed into these guys because at the very least it will help him do that fuel saving that we know that he needs to do. There goes Malechka getting on past Van der Sande in that number 97 car. Not making it easy as Van der Sande as Jeff Young rolls himself off a pit road. Plenty of cars having to blink and already passed for the lead. Christopher has been swarmed by the chasing pack. There goes Forsyth. Here comes Malechka III, Andrew.
Yeah, this is where things get really, really dicey. We've got a number of cars now who are on new tires and low fuel, and they're looking to go as fast as possible because they're battling with people who are potentially coming into the pits. So they're looking to do an overcut or an undercut, and then they're all mixing it up with cars on the lead lap who maybe can make it or maybe can't make it. So this is getting very dicey. If we're going to have a caution, I think it's going to happen in the next few laps here.
9 laps to go. Malechka inside of Forsyth. Barrett Rolfe has fallen slightly further back. Is starting to close the gap as Forsyth knocks down the wall. Has he got damage? Can Stouffer pounce, Justin?
Huge mistake for Craig Forsyth. We'll have to wait and see if Stouffer tries to pounce now that he's had so much time to try and save, with Newsom trying to potentially back things up to give Malechka the opportunity to get up to the front. Remember, the fuel mark is in a decent position for Malechka III and Forsyth. Based on what we've seen, it's just been the matter of trying to save that one lap or so. Forsyth definitely looks like he's significantly damaged. Right side pod is crinkled up and allowing air on in, and that is going to be a race killer.
There's more lap traffic. Paul Jenkins, Van der Sant right behind these cars. What does Stouffer do? You can see that 33 car. Barrett Rolfe lurking menacingly at this point in time with 8 laps to go. Left side of the screen once more. Let's talk about those movers and shakers. Plus 20. Yes, plus 20 for Barrett Rolfe, for Matt Taylor. Incredibly consistent performances from them over the course of the run. Incredibly aggressive at times, incredibly cautious at times as well on this race, to just work their way forward, to work themselves into potential podium contention. Another car inserting itself into the mix. I think that's the... Oh, it's hard to tell when it's an all-white car, but whoever it is, it might help Chris Stouffer at this point in time. 7 laps to go as the 18 car then of Jeff Seong does work its way inside. Let's take a look then at those championship situations and how it's playing out right now. Barrett Rolfe will take home almost a 30-point advantage if things end like this. Matt Taylor would jump up to second, Tony Schau in third, Alexis Newsom in fourth, Malechka would be in fifth, still in with a mathematical chance. Alexander Van der Sant would be in sixth. Here we go then, Andrew, 6 laps to go. Who's got the fuel to make it? Robert Malechka III has already run away, 3.7 seconds clear.
Yeah, with Craig Forsyth and that damage, Robert Malechka, Forsyth was going much slower than everyone else, but he was still leading that pack because Stouffer could not pass him if he wanted to make it on fuel. So finally someone else has gotten to the front of that pack, but they are now 4 seconds back of Robert Malechka.
Sorry, there went Chris Fowler. Bye-bye, Barrett Rolfe. Fowler rockets himself up to third position, getting past. First Stouffer, now looking to get past Craig Forsyth as well. Does Fowler have the fuel here? What a move. 4 positions in just 2 corners, Andrew.
Yeah, Fowler knows that he has to go right now. I don't think that they can catch Robert Malechka at this point, though. I think that the only thing that they can hope for is that Malechka just doesn't have the fuel. But I think that he does, looking at the fuel numbers that we're seeing on screen right now. I think he can make it comfortably 24 laps on this tank. So I really do think that those few laps that they spent behind Craig Forsyth there has really cost Chris Fowler, Barrett Rolfe, and Chris Stouffer a shot at the win here, and I think that Malechka, barring disaster in these next few laps, is going to take the win here.
Back-to-back victories. It would be 5 in 9. And if he hadn't missed the opening couple of races, I think you definitely call him the championship favorite. But as things run, it's Barrett Rolfe in 4th. Here comes a run from some lap traffic. That's Alexis Newsom. So very possibly doing that backing up that you were talking about, Justin.
Yeah, at this point, I think it's more so in regards to this context, though. Craig Forsyth's damage has him as a cork in the bottom. I don't blame him for fighting this hard for a podium position. But at the same time, this is playing with fire with how he's being affected down the straightaways. You can see just the aggression and frustration from some of these drivers coming out and how easy it's getting towards the bottom of the track as Matt Taylor rips that podium away from him.
Wait, where did Matt Taylor come from? Didn't we see him spun on pit road on the last caution and then on the last pit stop cycle, and now suddenly he's 4th?
He was able to hold on to the car just a little bit better than Newsom was. Now in a podium position, plus 23, an incredible drive up the field after struggling in the opening stint of the race. For Craig Forsyth, best finish on the season was 4th last time from Chicagoland. He's going to get another top 5. Not exactly what he would have wanted. It will be 5 miles for Robert Malechka III as he comes across the start-finish line once more. 2 laps to go, Justin.
And for much go to the third, keep in mind it's been an intriguing race when it comes to the strategy, how things have played out. Keep in mind, you see it in the backdrop, some drivers cannot make it to the end and have to take that critical third pit stop. Malechka to the third, just let things calm down, let things fall in his lap, and then when things fell in his lap, he watched as everyone else fought like chickens with their head cut off almost for the battle for second. He just was able to just take advantage and then some to be able to pull off and away. Without that damage for Forsyth, keep in mind, we don't see as big as this advantage in this big of an interval.
One more lap to go. White flag in the air here in Pocono. Christopher, by the way, has dropped all the way to 11th position. He is looking like he will be able to extend it, but he's rolling around the track at some very reduced speeds. What a performance and what a season he's putting together, Andrew, for Malechka III. He is coming on strong, might still have a chance of taking this title home.
To be honest, it reminds me of one of our teammates, Adam Blocker. Dare I say it, this type of performance is the type of performance we've seen from Adam. Is Robert Malechka the next one to be to step up in this series?
5 wins in 9 races. Watch out for Robert Malechka. He wins the -273 Pocono 200 presented by HyperX. What a race. Caution-free for 80 laps. No race at Pocono in Lionheart history here in the IndyCar has done that before. These drivers put on a show. One man stood up tall. Chris Fowler across the line in second. A great performance from him. But what a drive from Matt Taylor. 23 positions gained to that final step of the podium. Barrett Rolfe, another impressive drive from him after a disappointing qualifying performance, will extend his championship advantage. Craig Forsyth delivers a second consecutive top 5 to come across the line in 5th. What a race, Justin. And Pocono, yes, we went to the legacy version, bumps and all. It put on a show, and Robert Malechka victorious once more in the DW12.
We expected fuel mileage to be huge from the get-go, and guess what? A major factor in how things played out. If you played your cards right, you ended up coming away with this type of a run, and in the end, Malechka III timed up his pace for the perfect timing, and in turn took advantage of drivers picking up damage behind to help pull off and away and secure yet another victory this season for the factory back squad.
He'll be back in action just a couple of days from now in Lionheart IndyCar competition. The IR18s head to Twin Ring Motegi, but almost impenetrable when it comes to his performances in the DW12. Can he carry that forward to the IR18s? Let's go ahead then and take a look at our race results, because what a race we just witnessed. These unofficial race results are brought to you by Carnox. Robert Malechka III victorious by almost 5 full seconds from Chris Fowler for Team Race First Red. What a performance from the Team Race First Red team as they try and make a statement in the team standings as well. Matt Taylor plus 23 on the day. He completes the podium. A very impressive drive for him after making a mistake on pit entry in that final cycle of the race. Barrett Rolfe plus 20 after a disappointing qualifying for him. If he can nail qualifying, we know Rolfe can stick it out at the front. Craig Forsyth down 3 positions to 5th, while Mike Rigney, Dean Mull plus 14, plus 18 respectively for each of those drivers. Joe Branch in 8th, Samuel Ryman on debut plus 21 positions into 9th, while Ron Hacker across the line to complete the top 10. Tony Schowen tried to aid his teammate Christopher, but it was not enough. Tony Schowen, then the second of the Adrenaline Motorsports cars. He comes across the line in 11th, with Vern Hawkins in 12th. Matt Wagner, Charles T, the Dark Horse Motorsports duo, 13th and 14th, while Nick de Groot, after contact with lap traffic, drops to 15th, one of the last cars on the lead lap. Chris Lanini, Trevor Malone, 16th and 17th, while Christopher does come across the line on the leading lap, but not able to eke out the fuel like he would have wanted. He finishes in 18th. Alexander Van der Sant will be very disappointed to be 1 lap down on a slightly different fuel strategy to the rest of his competitors. Jeff Sion completes the top 20. Caleb Benchy, Alexis Newsom, Alex Guyon 21st through 23rd, while Paul Jenkins in 24th, the only car 1 lap down. Matt Houston, AJ Musselman 25th and 26th, Luis Gonzalez Nunez involved in contact with Brian Beard 27th and 28th, while Christopher Kresge and Dakota DeMade 29th and 30th. They had our first incident on the day in a race that somehow, despite all of the retirements that we had, went caution-free. And what we can do very quickly then is also take a look at how this shakes up things in the top 10 with our live point situations. Barrett Rolfe now only an 18-point advantage over Matt Taylor. Tony Schowen still in 3rd position. Alexis Newsom in 4th, Robert Malechka in 5th. Still in with a mathematical chance, but it's going to take an almighty effort, Justin, for him to try and take the championship. But you never know, 5 victories, 9 races, he could still very much do it.
Yeah, keep in mind the drops are going to be a major critical part in all of this, Arjuna, because he secures a few more victories. Guess which races count for amongst those points, those said victories. In other words, as long as he keeps this up, as long as he doesn't have a major incident, he's got this chance to be able to close up the gap. The downside of missing the early races, though, Arjuna, is he has no room for error. Any mistake, any crash, any DNF, any bad run in general takes him out of contention. In other words, the pressure is on and then some for Malechka III to keep up this performance.
It is time to head down to HyperX Victory Lane and into our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. And so for the 5th time this season, we dial up Robert Malechka III in HyperX Victory Lane. What a season it's been for you, Robert. And we were just saying, if you hadn't missed those first couple of races on the season, your championship hopes might look in a very different situation than they do right now. Still in with a chance, but with drop weeks coming into the equation, it's going to be a tall order, and you have to continue this incredible run over the next 5 races.
Yeah, Arjuna, I think I just got to keep winning. I'll tell you what, this race, I got a ton of luck there. It seemed that last run, everyone around me was either hitting the wall, wrecking, making insane saves like Chris. It was, man, that last run, I hope it looked good on the broadcast.
Oh, it was great, and no cautions as well. Really did put on a show for us. What do you enjoy in this DW12 so much? No in-car adjustments, so it's all about your 2 hands, your 2 feet. You've clearly got the formula figured out, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I prefer this tire model over the IR18. For some reason, I can feel the edge of the tire pretty well. But yeah, it seemed this race, especially, saving tires was a big factor. If you kind of took it easy those first 5-6 laps of the run, you were pretty quick at the end, which luckily I had to save fuel there, and worked out in my favor.
And so now we head into a stretch which is going to take short track racing. It's going to throw intermediates into the mix. What are you looking forward to in this closing stages? Because even if you don't get the championship, I'm sure you've had plenty of fun, and you'll head into next season with your sights set at the title. There's not much else that you can do given the season that you've had so far.
Yeah, really all I can do is, keep winning, keep building momentum for both Lionheart series. But yeah, for track-wise, any track that's multi-groove, you can move around, have fun, slip and slide. Those are the tracks I prefer, kind of like Pocono here, and hopefully we get more of those on the schedule coming up.
Congratulations, Robert. Dominating performance, and I've got to say, just before I let you go, I'm glad I didn't curse you because I picked you at our pre-race prediction, so congratulations. Looking forward to seeing you then short track racing in Iowa.
I was going to bring that up, just saying, but I'm glad you didn't pick me. Maybe next time you pick me, we'll see how this goes.
Congratulations. Let's make our way then over to 2nd place and to Chris Fowler. Chris, matching your best finish in the Speedway Series with another 2nd place from New Hampshire. Things are going pretty well for you across of all the Lionheart competitions right now. You seem like you're finally starting to get yourself out of some bad luck that you kind of got mired in earlier on this year.
Yeah, well, first I'd like to thank the Donate Life and the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation for partnering with me this year. It's really awesome to have them on the podium. Hopefully this year we'll get them in the win. But yeah, it's been the first half of the season in all 3 series has just been really, really bad. I've had so much bad luck between power losses, getting taken out, getting hit in somebody else's mess, and it's been crazy. There's so much bad luck, and so the second half is finally turning around in all 3 series. We got a second. Hopefully we can get one more spot. I was hoping to fight today. We just Wagner, I don't know if Wagner was pitting there and ran me down to the pit road, and then Barrett missed the bottom line in the tunnel turn and got into me, and luckily I saved it. And it was a venture race, but it was great. Come away with second. I really wish I could have, fought Robert there at the end, but still happy to come away with the second.
I have to ask about that save, because I still don't know how you managed to hang on to that one. It looks oh so close and almost like the contact was as negligible as possible, but that car went around and you managed to wrangle hold of that bucking Bronco. How close to disaster were you there?
Oh, I was on the edge. I thought for sure I was going to the wall, and I just got it to turn at the last minute. I was like, "Ooh, I'm good." Yeah, it was super close, man. I was so close to getting that wall. I thought for sure I was done at that point, and then I thought I was going to have some damage from that, but luckily, no damage. I was able to keep going. We caught the draft because everybody's trying to save some fuel. Got up there.
And a good day for your team, second and third, both you and Matt Taylor. In that team standings, you're trying to run down Adrenaline Motorsports, who started off the season very promisingly. It's not how you start, it's how you finish that really matters. How much are you guys working together when it comes to on the radio and stuff during these races? Because I'm sure there's lots of insight that you can share amongst one another.
Oh yeah, we're constantly communicating during the entire race, letting everybody know what's going on in front, behind, and any wrecks or fuel mileage or what's going on around us. So we're constantly training, running laps together, thinking about strategy and trying to get that top of the standings. And while I'm at it, I want to apologize to Caleb there. We kind of had that netcode incident at the end of the race, so you hate to take your teammate out there, but just online product of online racing. But we're working really hard. I think we're going to get there by the end of the season.
Looking forward to it. It's 5 races to go, so plenty of time to get that number 20 car into victory lane.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That was Chris Fowler, driver of the 20. Second place finish on the season for him. Now let's talk to his teammate, Matt Taylor, the biggest mover of the day. Matt, if you had qualified better, I mean, you would have made your life a lot easier, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. In fact, I just put this in the chat, but that was the best feeling worst lap ever. I genuinely didn't think that time was going to end up being as bad as it was. But I was just stuck there and essentially just stuck trying to make a fuel number, which did end up paying off in the long run. I oversaved a little bit the first stint. And then the second stint, I had a better feel for it. I was able to push a little harder and then just overcooked it into the pits, and that certainly didn't help either. Yeah,
I was going to ask about that one because it looks like you got pretty close to first completely looping it and then looping it again when you try to get yourself under control. What happened there? Just brake bias in the wrong place, going a bit too fast on the entry?
I think it was just a little too aggressive on the brakes there to keep it under me, but from that point on, I was keeping an eye on that fuel number, and I was right on it, and I just went, and I said, "The heck with it! I'm gonna go as fast as I can. We'll see what the number looks like when we get to the end." And I did not have much left when I crossed the line, but I was able to take huge advantage of other people not making that number, making mistakes.
And by the tentative points that we have tracking ourselves, you now jump to second in this championship. You're not just fighting for one Lionheart championship, of course, that's the Retro Series, but here as well. What's it going to take for you across all 3 of the competitions to keep your focus up? Because 3 very different cars go to all sorts of different tracks as well. Must be pretty difficult for you to get the practice laps in and make sure you're consistent week in, week out.
Yeah, it is really tough jumping from car to car, and I think with the way that these championships are shaping up, probably see taking less seat time in the IR18 here and there to really be prepared for these Monday races and the Retro Series. And we have a week coming up, second to last week in the season, where we have a triple header, which is going to be insane from a preparation standpoint.
Well, great job on the run, plus 23. Qualify a bit better at Iowa. Maybe you can take a second win once more on the short tracks, Matt.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to short tracks. Those have been good to me, so here's hoping I can keep this run going.
Congratulations on that run. So that wraps up then our podium interviews. and we should talk a little bit about what lies ahead of us. What a race that we've just had caution-free for the first time here in the Tricky Triangle, Andrew, but next time out, not September, well, I guess that entire schedule is a little bit wrong there. I'm not exactly sure why, but we'll go racing from Iowa next time, around just 7 days from now. That should be a treat.
Yeah, 2 championship caliber drives from Matt Taylor and Barrett Rolfe, as well as Robert Malechka with the win. But Iowa is going to be something else entirely. We go from a very big, wide open track to a very tight, short track with a lot of banking in the corners. This is going to be a lot of side to side coming and going. There's going to have to be a lot of give and take, and it's going to be a fantastic show in 1 week's time.
And so let's take one more look at those tentative points that we were just talking about. These are tentative because they don't also include all of the bonus points that get awarded to these drivers. Might also not factor in the drop weeks as they are calculated, but it is close. It is still exceptionally close, Justin, between basically still the top 6. I mean, if the top 5 struggle and Van der Steen is there to pounce, he might still mathematically be in with a chance. But Barrett Rolfe has been consistent. Barrett Rolfe needs to now close out the season, maybe just improve on those qualifying performances, puts himself with one hand on the championship with 5 races left to go.
That's definitely the main thing. If I was that organization, Ascari Autosport, I'm saying to Barrett, you need to spend X amount of time on qualifying runs, because that is your main weakness across the board. And that includes the starts he's made in IndyCar 2, where he's also started towards the back in a majority of said starts. So in our words, for Barrett to have the full package, he needs to be someone who can start at least in the top 10, in my opinion. More likely so inside the top 5, because that's what we've seen from Robert Malechka III. That's what we've seen a majority of the campaign from Matt Taylor. That's what we've seen from Tony Shalin, especially in the early stage of the season. And Alexis Newsom, of course, has always been known for the good qualifying sessions. In our words, all of Barrett's era competitors are strong at qualifying. That's his weakest link. If he wants to win the championship, he needs to be able to get to work on that now.
What a race. Pocono delivered like only Pocono can. 7 days from now, we'll go racing in the cornfields of Iowa. But before that, we have to thank all the partners that make this possible. The DMLC Racing Channel. Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than the DMLC Racing Channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing Channel on YouTube and like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing Channel. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders.
The SimXperience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire SimXperience ecosystem, visit simexperience.com.
For sim racers, the buttkicker Gamer 2 or simulation kit adds the missing driver-to-car connection, bringing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com and don't forget to use the promo code LION2021 for 20% off all orders.
Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Our industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and endurable, made of breathable spandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz. Don't forget to use the promo code Minus273LHRS15 for 15% off orders.
And it's not just them, but so many more that make all of this possible. To learn more about the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series, head to lionheartracingseries.com and join the series Discord to stay up to date with the latest comings and goings in the virtual paddock. We'll be back this Wednesday from the land of the rising sun and twin ring Motegi to see if anyone can try and stop Adam Blocker from taking a 4th consecutive Lionheart IndyCar Series title. 7 days from now, the Speedway Series heads to Iowa to go short track racing once more as we continue what has been a blockbuster inaugural season. To make sure you stay up to date with all esports action, you can follow Lionheart across Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. ESTV has you covered for all your esports needs. Stay up to date with them at Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, while RaceSpot has your sim racing action. So subscribe to us on YouTube, hit that red button and the bell next to it to get notified every single time we go live with a great sim racing series that we get to cover. Pocono was fun, but now it is short track racing next for the DW12. On behalf of the entire team at racespottv, for my co-announcers Justin Prince, Andrew Kinsella, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. Congratulations, Robert Malechka III, victorious once more here in the Speedway Series. He's in HyperX victory lane here at the -273 Pocono 200, presented by HyperX.